She followed every rule the badge required. He was the man the world had already sentenced in its head. One transfer she didn't choose will force her to decide whether the truth is worth her career, her freedom, and a promise made to a child who ran out of time.
Before we dive into this story, don't forget to like and subscribe, and tell me where you're watching from. Subscribe so you don't miss the next story. A reassignment lands without an author, without a briefing, with a subject line that cancels certainty, immediate transfer. She arrives at a maximum security intake where the air hums and the rules hang laminated at eye level. Chain of custody, no personal contact, report upward. She has lived inside rules her whole life. They've never asked much more than obedience. First shift. A property envelope slides across the counter, barcode crisp, seal intact. Inside, one photograph folded along a thumb-taut crease, a child's crayon drawing on the back that spells Ava, and a number written so lightly it nearly isn't there. The inmate who hands it over stands still, dignified. No bargaining, no denial. He asks for a single promise he can't keep himself, one call to a place he cannot reach. Details begin to lean. The intake label's hour digits tilt like someone corrected the time after the fact. A clinic entry reads, completed before the technician even walks in. A supervisor replies to a time correction with suspicious speed and a friendly order. Close the note. Each piece is small alone. Together they all lean the same direction, towards speed instead of scrutiny. She counts keys twice, writes dates with a capital D, keeps her lines straight because straight lines keep chaos out. But the transfer feels wrong. No author, a captain whose smile stops before it reaches his eyes, and a welcome that sounds like a warning. Intake is paperwork, not conversation. She files the sentence where she files everything and keeps working. He passes her station 3 times. Step, pause, wait for instruction. Yes, ma'am. Once and only once. Not loud, not broken, not rehearsed. When the room thins, he threads a truth through the noise. The proof isn't hidden. It's misfiled. Scans out of sequence. A transfer order with no author. A clock that tells 2 different stories. He doesn't ask to be believed. He asks that a number reach a pediatric chart room. If that chart contradicts intake, belief is irrelevant. If it matches, denial is too. She weighs the ask against the handbook on her desk. The price of listening has a badge number, a personnel file, and a line labeled violation. The price of refusing is quieter. Nothing changes and something true stays buried. A photograph, a crayon drawing, a number that refuses to fade. She flips forms, finds pen pressure where no pen should have pressed, works a corner of adhesive loose with her ID and frees a slip of paper placed where casual eyes don't look. Find Ava's bedside chart. Ask for release form 12B. She writes it once. Then, from memory, it stays. So does the risk. Her supervisor, Hale, moves through the room with unhurried shoes and polite walls. If you see something odd, report upward. Upward is where questions learn to wait. She files a neutral time correction to test the system. Within minutes, Hale replies, known clinic drift. Corrected. Close the note he signs with her first name, as if familiarity is the same as trust. It isn't. She leaves the note open. Paper tells on people when you ask it the right questions. The badge reader places a body at a doorway after the clinic says it was done. Device sync shows green lights. No lag to blame. The initials on a property line lean right in a way they don't on any other form that day, and the same slant repeats on a medical completion signed by an officer who was off-site at a courthouse. She circles nothing on official copies, everything in a pocket notebook that never leaves her reach. Lunch reveals hierarchy. Who laughs and who stops first. Hale sits with 2 sergeants, palms open on the table, a man who prefers statements to questions. He thanks her for diligence. The word lands like a pat on a head that isn't hers. The number on the scrap keeps breathing. She tests it away from any device that remembers. An old payphone 2 blocks from the gate that still takes coins. Hospital hold music. A recorded voice asking for an extension. She enters the digits. 2 rings. Then, a ventilator's steady rhythm, a pen on paper, a nurse whispering, "Ava." The line dies. The truth doesn't. Next morning's handover mentions a server reset at 3:12. A data lock exactly where the clinic entry falls. No IT ticket. She asks the night tech about downtime. "Quiet," he says. "Signed nothing from Unit C before dawn." The rules on the wall haven't changed. The job has. A folded note waits in her inbox. "Reassigned to records tomorrow." No header, no signature, just her first name. Records is supposed to keep her close to paper and far from people. It does neither. The escort line pauses outside the file room. The dignified inmate keeps his voice low. He doesn't ask for comfort. He asks if the number connected. Her silence is answer enough. Back at her tray, a folded square lies where it could be mistaken for trash. Inside, "Ava, Pediatric Wing, 12B. He explains the risk without drama. One internal call at noon will route the 12B through a fax spine that flags anomalies to supervisors who subscribe to alerts. If she dials, the review will pretend to be maintenance. Her terminal will hesitate. A polite box will offer to confirm permissions. Someone will suggest she stay focused on her lane. He doesn't call it a trap. He calls it a rhythm. Noon. The corridor thins. The door closes but doesn't lock. She dials the switchboard, asks for the pediatric chart room, requests release form 12B for Ava, transmission to records, attention audit reconciliation. The clerk asks for a callback number. She reads the digits off the plate. Somewhere far away, a printer starts. The paper arrives curling at one corner. Consent recorded at 21:16 on the night the drawing remembers. Parent signature, scuffed by a hospital pen. Witness signature, the same tilt she's seen all week. The timestamp's model number mirrors a faint impression she lifted off intake. Hands are hard to disguise. Clocks are harder. The hospital and intake cannot both be right. The record just chose a side. She hides the original where casual hands won't land. Under the drawer beside an incident memo addressed to herself. Time before door swipe. Signature from an officer off-site. Server lock with no ticket. 12B contradicts intake by 1 hour, 9 minutes. Witness hand matches misaligned initials appearing where they shouldn't. 2 copies leave by 2 different pouches for a state office that doesn't know Hale's name. The shell she gives Hale looks ordinary. A reconciliation confirming the drift he already claimed. He smiles and calls it minor. Systems begin to notice what people pretend not to. Her password expires early. Access pages bounce back, insufficient permission. A clerk who smiled last week won't meet her eyes. A memo goes up, internal audit, to improve efficiency. Hale leads the briefing and assigns her to assist. Efficiency here means someone will watch how she turns pages. The audit begins with binders and ends with people. An outside officer with a clipped tone asks for the path of a time correction. She gives it. "Do you verify external clocks?" "Only with authorization." "Did you request authorization this week?" "Yes." From Hale. Pencil moves. The question he doesn't ask is the one that matters. "Did you act without it?" Logs will suggest she did. Logs record motion, not motive. Pressure reveals pattern. Badge readers place bodies in doorways before forms say they arrive. Transport initials ride intake documents while the transporter sits in a courthouse waiting room. A server lock swallows minutes on the exact night a pediatric release prints consent. Each anomaly is dismissible alone. Together, they favor speed over scrutiny, closure over questions, exactly how corruption likes to breathe. Hale never raises his voice. He doesn't need to. He thanks her for diligence, invites her to bring anomalies to him so we can close them faster, mentions that the switchboard sometimes misroutes confidential requests, then studies her face for a flinch. She gives him nothing to grade. She keeps writing. Tight, neat letters, facts that travel farther than feelings. She slides her memo under the drawer, feels the envelopes press against her foot like a reminder, and mails 2 complaint packets by 2 routes. Paper moves. It moves best in more than one direction. By afternoon, the building grows ears. IT bumps her permissions for convenience. A veteran clerk speaks without lifting her eyes. The last person who asked these questions is no longer here. Here declines to define itself. Desk, building, career. Ambiguity does most of the work. The escort line passes again. The inmate says 4 words and leaves them on the counter like weight. The promise needs proof. He doesn't want pity. He wants a record a daughter can read without a grown-up to defend it. Internal Affairs calls on a Friday. They want lists, not speeches, forms, times, initials, doors, stamps. She doesn't guess why. She shows where. They don't thank her. They place her on leave for an unauthorized external request. That's the stamp. And it lands. Outside, the air isn't recycled. The notebook sits closed on a table because the work isn't finished. Monday, a state attorney calls. Multiple packets received. Documents match. The hospital verifies. The nurse whose initial repeats across forms writes a statement. The father stayed through the night. She witnessed consent. The attorney asks a question almost no one has risked. Are you safe? She says yes because there is no correct answer for that on a recorded line. A hospital social worker calls next. The release triggered a review. An addendum will go to the guardian on file, clarifying times and presence. The tone carries no pity, no apology, only correction. Inside the facility, speed slows. The transporter with the courthouse alibi is suddenly unavailable. Clinic clocks reconcile to badge readers as if clocks needed courage. Hale announces leave for family reasons no one can verify. The clipped-tone officer calls her back for one sentence on the record. Your submission is the initiating document. Bureaucracy prefers passive voice. This one chooses active. Costs arrive as expected. Misuse of access. Recommendation, suspension without pay. The union offers counsel. She contests nothing about the line she crossed. She sends acknowledgments from investigators and the state attorney's memo, then adds one line in her own hand. Action taken to verify documented truth. The inmate is moved to another unit. He doesn't message. He doesn't ask for updates. He understands paper has to travel in silence. Somewhere, a public defender files a motion to reopen. Hospital records, server logs, signature mismatches. The motion avoids names that attract retaliation. It prefers timestamps that refuse to argue. A letter arrives at records with no return address. Inside, 1 page from a pediatric chart. Family contact, final note. A nurse wrote a sentence a child asked for. He stayed until you slept. Someone underlined it. The mark wavering like a hand that needed the line to be read more than it needed to be straight. Internal Affairs brings her back to the table that loves forms more than people. Do you understand the policy you violated? Yes. Why did you do it? To correct a record that was being used to decide a life. They confer. Misconduct shrinks to unauthorized verification. A reprimand replaces an ending. Advancement will cost more. The file will follow her like a noon shadow. She signs anyway. Truth required a receipt. This is the price stamped on it. Back at her desk, the clock with no second hand hums like it always did. Laminated rules hang where they always have. Tools don't change because the person holding them learned something. She writes the final entry in her notebook. No names, just the loop closing. Promise delivered. Then the question that opened everything. What does duty look like when the person in front of you asks for nothing for themselves? Outside the paper rooms, effects keep moving. The motion to reopen gathers exhibits with patience. The nurse's statement stays simple. The hospital addendum refuses adjectives. Server logs keep their indifference to feeling. Somewhere, an officer with misaligned initials learns what offsite really means. Somewhere else, Hale practices a story that turns leaves into choice. The record will outlive all of them. She returns to work with one change. She reads the margins as if they breathe. A quiet intake now means ask who benefits from speed. A corrected timestamp now means ask which door needed to open sooner than rules allow. She still counts keys twice, still writes dates with a capital D. Precision didn't fail her. People did. Precision, turned outward, became the way back. The inmate doesn't get a scene where he thanks her or forgives the building. He gets a hearing date penciled in, hoping for ink later. He gets a daughter whose chart now holds a sentence no one can revise away. He asked for a promise. The record kept it. Reduce it to the pieces that carry farthest. Bedside consent at 2116. Witness hand repeating where it shouldn't. A server lock catching light in the exact window. A call log that records digits but not motive. A release that came to records looking routine and arrived as leverage. One pebble is nothing. A handful tilts the ledger. Systems say they corrected themselves. Paper says someone noticed a minute that didn't fit and refused to file it away. They think it ends with a reprimand. It doesn't. Corrections don't end with signatures. They begin there. The reprimand will cost interviews and slow doors. It will also keep her honest. She keeps 2 envelopes under the drawer, not as insurance, as memory. One holds the memo she wrote to herself in a disciplined hand. The other holds the release that proved time is a witness you can subpoena if you're stubborn enough. If a young officer ever asks why rules matter, she'll point to both and say, rules are the rails. And sometimes following them means measuring where they've been bent. The facility develops a new habit. When a clinic clock drifts, someone asks IT for a ticket number out loud. When a transport signature lands on the wrong line, someone marks the correction and photographs it. No posters, just muscle memory. Institutions turn like ships. Slow, and only if someone keeps holding the wheel. She tapes one line inside her notebook where no camera can see. No one is less safe, because you checked. It isn't heroism. It's procedure pushed to its logical end. She didn't save a person. She served a record until it told the truth, and the truth happened to belong to a person. Outcomes are not morals. The motion to reopen may succeed or fail for reasons bigger than virtue, but the pediatric addendum will not be revised away. Hospitals keep better track than memories. He stayed until you slept. That line lives where redactions don't reach. This story doesn't assign meaning. It presents a sequence you can trace, a reassignment with no author, a number that didn't belong, a payphone that still took coins, a release that contradicted an intake, a reprimand that priced a choice. If you need meaning, read the sequence. He didn't ask for freedom. He asked for a promise. It cost a rule keeper a line on her record and gave a child a sentence that will outlast everyone's memory. If the smallest discrepancy can sound louder than any alarm, it's because alarms are designed to stop and discrepancies are designed to persist. If you want more stories where the record speaks for itself, subscribe. Like if timing counts as evidence. Share this with someone who needs a reason to check the minute hand.